So we're going to run an executable, Dagger with Erik.
Okay.
And the first thing that we're seeing is listing the nodes. So we have one single node. We have K9s running, and it's showing us a namespace which doesn't exist yet. It was created, it was deleted. We'll create it again. So single Kubernetes node 128.5 running the latest available Talos, which is 161. By the way, this should work on any Kubernetes the same. The first thing what you're going to do is create a privileged namespace. So Dagger, when you install it, it needs to be privileged. Run as root, host namespace, the whole thing. So people will be asking, like, why does it need to be privileged?
Yeah.
And the thing which most miss is that Dagger itself has a container runtime. Dagger itself will create container namespaces, will create network namespaces that has a lot of stuff going on inside of it. So it cannot run in another namespace. It needs to have access to pretty much everything. And if you do try to do that, if you do try to run in a namespace, you start hitting all sorts of issues. And then a bunch of features will no longer work, which is not what most people want. And that's something that, some people say, oh, I can't run Dagger in my Kubernetes because it needs to be privileged. And my Kubernetes doesn't allow privileged. And this is why, because it is a container runtime. And if you try to run a container runtime in a container runtime, that's hard, especially if you want like GPU support and things like that, which, by the way, Dagger supports. But that's another story. Why Kubernetes? I keep getting this question quite a bit. And the answer is, for me, my personal answer, it imposes a certain operational maturity. Like, how do you run things? How do you think about all the systems? How do you think about degradation? How do you think about idempotency, about declarative versus imperative? It forces you to make certain good choices. And yes, it's not the easiest thing, but in my experience, it's worth it. So let's move on. Let's go to the next step. This is the one line that's required to install Dagger. There's a Helm chart. We've already created the namespace, so we're just reusing the same namespace. Now, the one thing which I still need to get back to and fix this is I have to set the engine image tag explicitly. We're not bumping it inside the Helm chart whenever we release, so that's a reminder for myself. And the Helm chart itself, it just comes from an OCI registry Dagger IO, Dagger Helm, and that's all that's needed. So now, the next step, let's wait for Dagger Engine to be ready. If people try to do this and they're confused about the semantics of the wait command, kubectl wait, and the timeout, if you set the timeout, it doesn't work as expected. Maybe it's a bug. The point is, we're not going to fix it, and in 30 seconds, we'll move on. And we're almost there. We can obviously see the engine running. It's down at the bottom, and this is now met. And it's exactly the same pod. Anything to say here?
No, looks good. Yeah, looks like
looks good.
running.
That's it. Looks good. Thumbs up. Keep going.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. So what's happening now?
You're calling a module. So yeah, you did Dagger CLI. Well, first you had to set that environment variable to explicitly point the Dagger CLI to the engine that you just deployed, which, as you can tell, is an experimental format, and we have things in the backlog to improve all that. Either way, that's what the export is. And then Dagger, so you're doing -- mod, which means, okay, so a module is a reusable piece of like Dagger code. And so a module exposes functions that you want to call. And so you can just specify the module as GitHub repo, because modules are just source code. So you just say, here's the source code for the module. And then you're doing call, and then you're saying with name. So with name is a function exposed by the module. And you're setting name to Erik and Gerhard, and then you are calling message, which is another function on the return type of with name. So, and then there you go. Hello, Erik and Gerhard.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it. So this is, I think, the secret. And by the way, these commands, they're running locally. So all of these are running locally. This export is running locally. The CLI, the Dagger CLI, is already installed locally, and it's all running locally. And it's using this environment variable that tells the CLI, run this command in this engine, which is running as a Kubernetes pod that we just installed. And this is that like magic that, again, many people are missing. And I think you're right. I think the experimental thing, it's been like that for a while. I think We had it long enough that now we can drop it, and the Dagger runner host is like a first class, fully supported environment variable. Now this has been cached, so that's why it's a bit quicker. It was more interesting, to talk about it rather than like see it run. It's not that much slower if you run it for the first time, but FYI, if you run it for the first time, you can expect it to be slightly slower. Also depends on your internet connections. There's like a couple of things there. Cool. So moving on. This is one of my favorite things to do. It started as a crazy conversation. It was, I think, Erik's idea. So what's happening now, Erik?
So now you're running a module with a shell, so you can hook up also a interactive shell to a container returned by a module. And this one is, we found some ASCII like Space Invaders implementation on GitHub, just random one, and then modified it a little bit to allow you to use the Dagger SDKs to destroy YAML, our arch enemy.
Right. I'm not doing a good job of that. Look at that. I'm almost going to die. Let's see.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah, like to kill all the YAML. Where am I? Okay. Oh, and I died. There you go. Okay, so that was like less than a minute. I have a few more lives left.
Yeah.
Score 330. Can you beat it? So the person watching this, can you beat it? I'm going to Control-C this. But by the way, there's like a single command to run, and we'll share this. But moving on, that was it. Like, now we're just deleting the Dagger engine. So we're cleaning it up. And you can see the pod is terminating down here, and it will take just a few more seconds before it's done. So we've seen that small little demo. There's many more to come. At least that's what I would like to do. Many more demos like this one. And again, if you haven't seen it, this is the star of the show, this little thing here. And I would really like to bring it to KubeCon and do a couple of things with it. Cool. Thank you for today, Erik. I'm looking forward to next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Gerhard. Appreciate it.
See you soon.
See ya.
If you enjoyed this, there is a podcast that goes with it. Check out pod.gerhard.io. For the full conversation, go to makeitwork.gerhard.io. Until next time. Oh, and look at that. That's what I was waiting for. It's spinning.
Wow. It's beautiful.
So it's a very silent fan. It's so silent you can't even hear it. Look, it's right to my microphone.
Nice.
That's it.